What are type 1 and type 2 errors in hypothesis testing? In this video, we will try to understand that. Let's say, as per some studies, the average expense of a family in India is rupees 10,000. Let's also assume that the study was conducted 5 years back. Now, we draw a random sample of 100 families from the entire population and take the average expense of the 100 samples. Let's say now we find the average expense to be rupees 11,000. So, can we conclude that the average expense of a family in India has changed in the last 5 years? To know that, we need to conduct hypothesis testing. We can state two hypotheses, one null hypothesis and one alternative hypothesis. In our case, the null hypothesis will be that the average expense of an Indian family is rupees 10,000 and the alternative hypothesis will be that the average expense of an Indian family has changed in the last 5 years and it is not rupees 10,000. So, we will conduct hypothesis testing and find out the p-value. Then, we will compare the p-value with the significance level alpha. We have already discussed what p-value and significance level are in one of our previous videos. The relevant link is provided in the description. Now, we know that if the p-value is less than the significance level alpha, then we will reject the null hypothesis. And if the p-value is more than alpha, then we will fail to reject the null hypothesis. Type 1 and type 2 errors are two types of errors that can occur in hypothesis testing. Type 1 error is a type of error that occurs when a null hypothesis is rejected when it should not be rejected. In other words, we get a p-value less than alpha in the hypothesis test and we reject the null hypothesis. But the null hypothesis is correct and it should not be rejected. And it may happen because of sample error. Our sample may have overestimated the effect by any chance. We know that the effect is the difference between the sample value and the null value. For example, in our case, the effect is rupees 11,000 minus rupees 10,000, that is rupees 1,000. So, we can say that type 1 errors are false positives. In this error type, we reject the null hypothesis when it should not be rejected. On the other hand, type 2 errors are false negatives. In this error type, we fail to reject a null hypothesis when it should be rejected. In other words, we get a p-value that is more than the significance level alpha and so we fail to reject the null hypothesis. But the null hypothesis should be rejected. And type 2 errors can happen for several reasons. Small effect size, small sample size or high data variability can be reasons behind type 2 errors. So, now the question is one type of error worse than the other? The answer is it depends on the specific test. For example, let's say we are assessing the strength of a part of a jet engine and people's lives depend on the part of that jet engine. And the null hypothesis is that the part is not strong enough. So, in this case, type 2 error means we fail to reject the null hypothesis when it should be rejected. In other words, we assess the part to be not strong enough when it is strong enough. So, the risk of type 2 error here is low. On the other hand, let's say the part of the jet engine is already in use. So, our null hypothesis in this case is that the part is strong enough and type 2 error means false negatives. In other words, we fail to reject the null hypothesis when it should be rejected. In other words, we assess the part of jet engines to be strong enough when it is not strong enough. So, type 2 error in this case is riskier than type 1 error. Hence, we should carefully consider the consequences of each type of error in hypothesis testing. I hope this helps. Interested viewers who want to know more, please visit the website of the security body or refer to the playlist Statistics for Machine Learning. The relevant links are provided in the description. You can also subscribe to us and get notifications on recent videos.